I never thought my best friend would try to destroy my marriage. I mean, we'd been through everything together since we were 11 years old. Sarah was the first person I met when my family moved to a new country. My sister-in-law introduced us and we just clicked. For 18 years, she was my ride or die. She was at my wedding. She was the first person I called when I found out I was pregnant with my son. She was the aunt my kid never had. And then one Saturday morning after a gym class, she sat in my car and told me she saw my husband making out with another woman. Let me back up. I'm 29, my husband is 31, and we have a 2-year-old. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break. Sometimes I grab second breakfast at a cafe near my job, or I walk 5 minutes to my husband's office to eat with him. He runs his own business, so his schedule is flexible. We're pretty domestic, you know. Normal life. The week everything went sideways, I had a work trip planned for Wednesday to a city about 2 hours away. But Tuesday night, a red alert came through, severe flooding warning for that area. The trip got canceled. So Wednesday morning, I stayed home with my son. My husband left at 6 a.m. to check on his business and set up flood protection. By 7:30, he was back making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We literally didn't leave the house until Friday. My kid, my husband, and me just hanging out in our pajamas, watching cartoons, the whole boring, wonderful thing. On Wednesday at 3 p.m., Sarah texted me, "Are you home already?" "It's flooding where you were traveling." I replied, "Home safe." That was it. Saturday morning, we went to our usual gym class together. Afterwards, she pulled me aside and said we needed to talk in private. So we went out to my car, sat in the front seats, and she told me she had something serious to share. She looked nervous, almost excited. She said, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out, and your kid was in the car." I froze. My brain just stopped. I remember staring at the dashboard, not breathing. She kept talking, describing the scene, a gorgeous blonde like a Barbie doll, and my husband holding her, kissing her, while my son was in the back seat. She said she saw them at about 11 in the morning. She said it was during the red alert in the parking lot of a grocery store near our house. And then something clicked. I asked her 3 times, "Are you sure it was this Wednesday?" She said yes, absolutely positive. I asked about the time, the place, the weather. She confirmed every detail. She was so confident. But I knew with absolute certainty that she was lying. Because Wednesday, 11 a.m., I was sitting on my living room floor building a block tower with my son while my husband was on the phone with his insurance agent about the flood risk. We were all together. There was no way. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at her and said, "That's impossible. I was home with my husband all day Wednesday. He never left. I never left. Neither did our son." Her face went pale. She started stumbling over her words. Maybe she got the day wrong. Maybe it was a different week. But I had asked her 3 times and she had confirmed it 3 times. I told her I needed to go. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I walked in, my husband was making lunch. I sat him down and told him exactly what Sarah had said. He looked just as shocked as I was. He asked if she had some kind of history of lying, and I honestly didn't think so. We'd never had a fight, never had jealousy between us. I had no idea why she would do this. I texted her, "I need to understand. Why did you make that up?" She replied almost immediately, "I don't know what you're talking about. I was just trying to help." Help by planting a fake affair in my head. I told her I didn't want to see her or talk to her again. She tried calling, but I didn't pick up. For the next few days, I was a wreck. I kept replaying every conversation we'd ever had. Had she always been jealous? Was she trying to break us up? My husband comforted me, but he was also angry. He said, "If she could do this, she was never your real friend." A week later, a mutual friend called me. She said Sarah's boyfriend had dumped her out of nowhere about a month before. Sarah had been devastated, saying she was afraid she'd end up alone while everyone around her was married with kids. And then she heard about my happy family and just snapped. She wanted to ruin it. She wanted me to feel as miserable as she did. It sounds insane, but people do crazy things when they're hurting. I haven't spoken to her since. I changed my gym class time. I block her number. It's been months now, and I still get a knot in my stomach when I think about it. She was my best friend for 18 years. And she tried to sabotage my marriage with a lie so stupid it fell apart in 2 seconds. But what if I had been traveling that day? What if I had believed her? She almost destroyed everything I have just because she was lonely. That was the first time I realized how fragile trust really is, and it wasn't the last. Not long after that, another story hit close to home. It was about a woman who gave 9 years of her life to a man named Nate, starting when she was just 18. For the record, I was 27 when I finally understood what I'd been through. We met in high school and were together for 9 years. He was my entire world. I helped him through depression. I helped keep his grades up. I worked 2 jobs so he could focus on college when his parents disowned him because they didn't agree with his major or the college he chose. And I was a college student myself at the time. I was running on fumes, but I didn't care because I loved him. After 3 years of estrangement, his parents started talking to him again and began financially supporting him. We moved into a new apartment. He told me he wanted me to quit my job. He said it was his turn to take care of me, but I didn't quit. I had worked too hard to get where I was. For 16 months, he spoiled me. He took me out to nice dinners, bought me gifts, made me feel like a princess, and then things started to shift. He became more interested in his new friends. He would ignore me at dinners, check his phone constantly, and brush off my attempts to talk. In December, he did a complete 180. He love-bombed me the entire month. He went out of his way to make Christmas magical. He bought me jewelry I'd only ever pointed at in store windows. He cooked my favorite meals. He made a speech on New Year's Eve about how I was his first love, how I'd been there since high school, how I was the reason he got through everything. I genuinely believed he was going to propose on January 2nd. He made my favorite dinner, set up candles, played our song. I sat at the table, my heart pounding, thinking any minute now he'd pull out a ring, but no, he dumped me. As his speech went on, my world fell apart. He tried to sugarcoat it, but the core was brutal. He basically said, "You were a good girlfriend, but that's what you'll always be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife or the mother of my children. I've been thinking about this for months. We want different things." I didn't scream. I just sat there staring at the half-eaten lasagna on my plate. I asked him, "Is there someone else?" He said no. He said he just needed to find himself. He said he needed space. He packed a bag and left that night. I stayed in the apartment we shared, surrounded by Christmas decorations that felt like a cruel joke. For months, I was broken. I lost weight. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, trying to figure out where I went wrong. I had given him everything. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I held his hand through his depression. I believed in him when his own parents didn't. And he just decided I wasn't good enough to marry. Then, in April, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. But I knew the message style immediately. It was Nate. He said, "I need to talk to you. There's something I need to get off my chest. Please meet me, coffee shop on Main Street, Saturday at noon." I was shocked. We hadn't spoken since he walked out in January. I thought about ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. I showed up at the coffee shop on Saturday. He looked terrible. He was thinner, pale, dark circles under his eyes. He sat down across from me and started talking without even saying hello. He said, "I lied to you. There was someone else, a coworker. I started falling for her around October. She's the reason I pulled away. She's the reason I ended things." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, but I stayed quiet. He kept going. He said he confessed to her a week after breaking up with me. He told her he had ended a 9-year relationship to be with her. He thought she would be thrilled. And then he told me the best part. She laughed in his face. She called him a piece of trash. She told him if he ever spoke to her again outside of work, she would report him for harassment. She said, "You threw away 9 years with someone who loved you just for a chance with me? That's pathetic." Turns out she had never been interested in him. She had just been polite at work. He had misread everything, and now he was alone. He had no girlfriend, no wife, no friends who wanted to hear his sob story. He reached out to me because he wanted closure. He wanted to apologize. He said he realized I was the best thing that ever happened to him and he threw it away. I sat there and listened to the entire thing. And then I stood up, put a $5 bill on the table for my coffee and said, "Good luck finding yourself, Nate." And I walked out. I blocked him that night, but he still tried to reach me through email, through mutual friends. He even showed up at my apartment once. I had to tell the building manager I had a stalker. It's been 7 days since that update, and I still feel sick when I think about how close I came to wasting another year on him. But that wasn't the last gut punch I heard about. I thought I had seen it all after the Nate situation, but then I heard what happened to a woman I sort of knew through a mutual friend. She was an emergency medicine doctor, 32 years old, married for 4 years, together for 7. Her husband was a civil engineer. She was the kind of person who had everything figured out until she didn't. Her story started about 14 months ago when her husband started pushing her to get pregnant. She didn't want to. She was finally hitting her stride at work. They had just bought a condo and their life wasn't set up for a kid. But she was a coward, she admitted that. She'd never really disagreed with him before, so she kept her mouth shut and convinced herself it wouldn't be a big sacrifice. So they got pregnant, and she was miserable from day one. Pregnancy did not suit her. She felt disconnected from everything, especially the baby growing inside her. She started therapy. Her therapist told her she was holding resentment against the baby because she was worried about her career. The therapist was right. She worked on it, and by month 6, she was actually excited. She and her husband were in a better place. Then the baby was born stillborn at 7 months, and she had horrible complications that left her with almost zero chance of ever getting pregnant again. After the initial shock and the physical and emotional trauma, she honestly felt relief. She felt relief because she could go back to work, back to her life. She never told anyone that part because she knew how awful it sounded. But her husband was devastated. He grieved openly and she tried to comfort him, but a distance was forming. He started spending more time with his friends, and one friend in particular, a woman named Megan, started showing up a lot. Megan was also a friend of the husband's from college, and she was always around now. About 8 months after the stillbirth, the husband told her he had a plan. He said it very seriously, like he had been thinking about it for a long time. He said, "I know we can't have a baby of our own, but Megan has offered to be a surrogate for us, for our family. She said she'd carry our baby." The wife stared at him. She asked, "Our baby? How exactly would it be our baby?" He got defensive. He said, "Well, I would be the father. And you could be the mother. You'd raise it. You'd love it. That's what matters, right?" She asked him. "And who's the biological mother?" He wouldn't answer at first. But she pressed, and he finally admitted, "Megan would donate the egg too. It would be my sperm and her egg, but you'd be the real mother. You'd raise it." She felt like the room was spinning. She asked, "So you want me to raise your child with another woman, the child you two would make together?" He said, "It's not like that, it's just science. It's just a way for us to have a family." She asked him if he had already discussed this with Megan. He said yes, they had talked about it extensively. He said Megan was on board, she wanted to help them. He said this was the solution to their problem. The wife didn't scream, she just said, "I need time to think about this." Over the next few days, she started noticing things. The way he talked about Megan, the way he lit up when her name came up, the way he had been spending more and more time at her place. She realized he had already made the decision. He and Megan had already planned this. He just needed her to sign off on it. She confronted him again. She said, "This isn't about having a family. This is about you wanting a baby with her. You're already emotionally cheating on me with her." He got angry. He said, "I'm not cheating. I'm trying to fix our marriage. You don't understand what I'm going through. You didn't even want the baby we lost." That was the worst thing he could have said. She walked out of that conversation and went to stay with a friend. She didn't speak to him for a week. When she came back, she told him if he brought up Megan or surrogacy again, she would file for divorce. He backed off. He even blocked Megan. He quit the job where they worked together. He did all the right things, including agreeing to marriage counseling. But the trust was gone. She said it was like looking at a stranger. She didn't know what he was capable of anymore. It's been 10 years since that original post. I don't know if she's still with him, but I hope she left. Because that level of betrayal, that casual cruelty doesn't just disappear. Then there was another story, this one about a husband and his ex-wife. I heard it from a man who was 37, his husband was 32. They had been married for 3 years, together for 6. He had a 7-year-old son, Jack, whom he adopted after they got married. He loved Jack like his own. The problem was his husband's family. They were pretty homophobic. They never accepted their son being gay or bisexual, and they were always telling him he should get back together with his ex-wife Allison, a woman he divorced before they even met. For Jack's birthday, they went to the husband's family town to celebrate. The mother-in-law decided it would be a great idea to invite Allison without telling anyone. She just showed up in the middle of the party. He didn't want to ruin Jack's birthday, so he stayed quiet. He spent all his time playing with Jack and his cousins. When it was time to cut the cake, he noticed Allison and his husband were gone. He went inside and looked around. He found them in the husband's old bedroom in the family home. They were undressing each other. He stood there in shock for a moment. He watches as his husband pushed Allison against the wall. He watched as his husband kissed his ex-wife. And then he left. He walked back to the party and cut the cake. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He made sure Jack had a good birthday. About an hour later, Allison and his husband came back downstairs. His husband took him aside and said, "You shouldn't have cut the cake without me. That was disrespectful." He stared at his husband and just said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." His husband went quiet. He took Jack and left the hotel. Once Jack was in bed, the phone started ringing. It was his husband, then the in-laws, then Allison. He turned off his phone. The next day, he called the in-laws and said they wouldn't be coming back. He called his husband and said he'd be served with divorce papers. His husband showed up at the hotel crying, saying it was a mistake, that Allison had been crying to him about her problems, and one thing led to another. He said, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I lost my head." He asked his husband, "Is this the first time?" His husband said yes. He didn't believe him. He sent his husband away. He contacted a lawyer the next morning. Then he did a little digging. He found credit card statements. He found texts on the phone bill. He found out that his husband had been meeting Allison for months. He found out that his husband had been sleeping with her since before they even got married. He found out that his husband's entire family knew and had been covering for him. And then he found out the number. His husband had been with 14 other women during their 6-year relationship. 14. He thought he was building a life with a man who loved him. Instead, he was married to a serial cheater whose entire family was in on the lie. The husband tried to get back with him for months. He sent letters, flowers, gifts. He showed up at Jack's school. He tried to turn Jack against him. He told Jack he was stealing him. He called and called and called. He had to get a restraining order. He had to change Jack's school. He had to move. And even now he still gets creepy calls from unknown numbers, emails from accounts he doesn't recognize. He said he thinks his ex-husband has been stalking him for years. In the latest update, the ex-husband apparently got remarried to Allison, but it fell apart. He tried to reach out again, wanting to talk, wanting to explain. He wanted to say he missed the family they had. He wanted to say he understood now what he threw away. The ex-husband sent a long email saying he was sorry, that he was in therapy, that he wanted to be a co-parent to Jack. But Jack is 11 now, and his ex-husband gave up all parental rights when the divorce was finalized. He didn't want Jack, he just wanted to hurt him. That wasn't the only story of betrayal I heard. There was another one about a best friend who tried to destroy a marriage. I'll tell you that one now. I met my best friend Sarah when I was 11 years old. My family had just moved to a new country and my sister-in-law introduced us. We hit it off immediately, and for 18 years she was my person. She was at my wedding. She was the first person I called when I got pregnant. She was the godmother to my 2-year-old son. I thought I knew her. My husband and I have a good life. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break. Sometimes I go to my husband's office, it's a 5-minute walk or a cafe near my job. Once in a while I have to travel for work to another city. I always mention it casually to Sarah. She always asks about my schedule. I never thought anything of it. Last week I was supposed to travel on Wednesday. But Tuesday night a red alert came through about the weather. The forecast was bad, flooding, the whole thing. My work thing was cancelled, so I stayed home with my 2-year-old. My husband went out at 6 in the morning to close up his business and put up flood protection. He was back by 7:30 making breakfast. It didn't start raining until 1 in the afternoon. We stayed home together all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, all day Friday. We didn't go out until Saturday. On Saturday, Sarah and I go to the same gym class. After the class, she pulled me aside and said we needed to talk in private. We went to my car. She looked very serious, like she was about to deliver terrible news, and she did. On Wednesday, she said, I saw your husband with a woman, they were making out, and your kid was in the car. I froze. My first thought was that I had misheard her, but she said it again. I saw them, I'm so sorry. I couldn't process it. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was Wednesday. She confirmed 3 times. I asked her about the time. She said about 11 in the morning. I asked her if it was during the red alert. She said yes. I asked her if she was 100% sure, and she launched into a full description. My husband making out with a gorgeous Barbie lookalike blonde in a car with my son in the backseat. But I knew my husband was with me at 11 on Wednesday. He was in our kitchen making us grilled cheese sandwiches. Our son was in his high chair eating Cheerios. I had texted Sarah at 3 that day saying home safe because she had asked if I was home, and now she was lying. I didn't scream, I just said, Sarah, my husband was with me all day Wednesday. We never left the house. Her face went white. She started stammering. Maybe it was Tuesday or Thursday. I saw something, I must have mixed up the days. I shook my head. No, you specifically said Wednesday. You described it. You said you saw them. She started crying. She said she was just looking out for me. She said she must have seen something and confused it. She said she was sorry. I told her I needed space. I drove home and told my husband everything. He was as shocked as I was. He said, why would she make that up? And then I started thinking. I started remembering all the little things. How Sarah always asked about my travel schedule. How she would sometimes text me during my break to see where I was. How she would get extra clingy when I talked about my husband. How she had never been in a serious relationship but was always jealous of mine. How she had said once at a party that she wished she could find a man like mine. My husband's office is 5 minutes from my office. Sarah knows that. She knew I wasn't traveling on Wednesday because I told her I was home safe. But she also knew I had mentioned traveling to another city the week before. Maybe she thought the weather would make me cancel. Or maybe she counted on me being gone and hoped I wouldn't check. I'll never know, but I do know this. She wanted to break my marriage. She wanted me to doubt my husband. She wanted to be the one who saved me from a cheating husband so I would lean on her. And she almost got away with it. I haven't spoken to her since that Saturday. She's tried calling, texting, even showing up at my house. My husband answers the door and tells her to leave. Our mutual friends are divided. Some believe her, some believe me, but I know what I know. I was with my husband. My son was with us, and Sarah lied. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had actually been traveling that day, if my husband had been alone. If she had seen him at a cafe and told me the same story, I might have believed her. I might have wrecked my own marriage based on a lie from someone I trusted for 18 years. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't always come from a partner. Sometimes it comes from the person you call your best friend. And then there was another story, this one from a woman who was with her boyfriend for 9 years before he dumped her on what she thought would be the night he proposed. I'll tell you that one too. I met Nate when I was 18. He was 17, a year younger, but we were both in high school. We hit it off immediately. For 9 years, he was my world. I helped him through depression. I helped him keep his grades up. I worked 2 jobs so he could focus on college when his parents disowned him for nearly 3 years because they didn't agree with the major or the college he chose. I was also a college student myself, but I made it work. I believed in him. Then his parents started talking to him again and helped us financially. We moved into a new apartment. He said he wanted me to quit my job because it was his turn to take care of me. I didn't quit, but I appreciated the sentiment. For 16 months, everything was great. He spoiled me. He took me on dates. He told me I was the love of his life. Then he got a new group of friends at work. He started spending more time with them. He ignored me sometimes. I felt like I was losing him, but in December he did a complete 180. He love-bombed me. He made Christmas magical. He went all out with presents, decorations, and a dinner that I'll never forget. He made my favorite meal. He gave a speech about how I was his first love, how I'd been there since high school, how he couldn't imagine his life without me. I thought he was going to propose on January 2nd. He had that look. He was nervous. He kept touching his pocket. I was so excited I could barely eat, but then his speech changed. He started saying things like, you were a good girlfriend, but that's what you'll always be to me, a girlfriend. I don't see you as my wife or the mother of my children. I think we want different things. He dumped me, right there at the dinner table after 9 years after I had sacrificed everything for him. I was devastated. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I lost weight. I cried for weeks, and then 2 weeks later I found out the truth. He had been having an emotional affair with a coworker. Her name was Jessica. He had told her he was in love with her. He ended a 9-year relationship to be with her. But here's where it gets funny. She didn't even like him. When he confessed his feelings, she called him a piece of trash and told him that if he ever spoke to her again, she would go to HR and report him for harassment. He was left with nothing. No girlfriend, no backup plan, and then he had the nerve to reach out to me again. 7 months later, he sent me a text. "I need to get something off my chest. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. He called. I didn't answer. He sent a long email saying he was sorry, that he had made a terrible mistake, that he realized I was the one, that he wanted to try again. I deleted it. Because here's the thing, I gave him 9 years. I sacrificed my own dreams for his. I loved him through depression, through family rejection, through everything. And in return, he told me I wasn't wife material because I helped him become a man. He wanted a fairy tale, not a partner who had seen him at his worst. He thought he could trade up. He thought the coworker would be his happy ending. But she saw him for what he was, and now he wants me back. No, I deserve someone who sees me as their first choice, not their last resort. I'm doing better now. I'm in therapy. I'm focusing on my own career. I'm learning to love myself. And I'm never going to let a man make me feel like I'm not enough ever again. But some stories, they hit different. They're not about a friend lying or a boyfriend trading up. They're about the person you married, the person you loved, deciding that your body isn't enough. And that's a whole different kind of pain. I'm a doctor, emergency medicine. I've been in love with my job since I was 12 years old. I worked my ass off through med school, residency, everything. And when I met my husband, I thought I had it all. He was a civil engineer, not as passionate about his career as I was, but he was kind, he was loving, he had this big group of friends, and he made me feel like I was the center of his universe. We got married when I was 28, together for 7 years total. It was good, it was really good. Then he started talking about kids. He wanted a baby. He'd bring it up over dinner on weekends, in bed at night. I wasn't ready. I was finally hitting my stride at work. I had just gotten a promotion. We had bought our first condo. Our lives were finally settling into something comfortable. A baby would change everything. But I was a coward. I didn't tell him how I felt. I thought maybe I can make it work. I'll just go along with it. It won't be that big of a sacrifice. So we got pregnant. I was miserable from day one. The nausea, the exhaustion, the constant doctor's appointments, I hated it. I felt disconnected from the whole thing. I wasn't excited. I wasn't bonding. I started seeing a therapist and she told me the honest truth. I was holding resentment against this baby because I was worried about my career. She was right. I worked on it. By month 6, I was finally starting to feel something. I was excited. My husband and I were in a better place. We painted the nursery. We picked out names. I let myself believe it was going to be okay. Then at 7 months, our son was born still. I don't want to go into all the details of that day. I still can't think about it without breaking down. But the physical trauma was almost as bad as the emotional. I had complications that left my chances of ever getting pregnant again at an incredibly low percentage. I knew deep down that I was never going to carry a child again. After the initial shock, after the funeral, after the weeks of crying and not leaving the house, I started to feel a strange sense of relief. I know that sounds horrible, but it's the truth. I could go back to work. I could focus on my career. I didn't have to be a mother. I could be myself again. I told my husband that I was ready to move forward, that we could adopt, we could use a surrogate, we could have a happy life without me being pregnant. He nodded. He said he understood, but he didn't. A few months later, he came home from work one night and sat me down at the kitchen table. He had that nervous look he gets when he's about to ask for something big. "I've been thinking," he said, and I talked to my friend Rachel. Rachel was a woman from his gym. She was single, early 30s, always posting about how she wanted to be a mom but didn't have a partner. I'd met her a few times. She seemed nice enough. "She's willing to be a surrogate," he said. I blinked. "Okay, that's great. We can look into that." He shook his head. "No, you're not understanding. She's not just a surrogate. She wants to be the mother. She says she'll carry our baby, but she wants to keep it. She'll raise it as her own, and we can be involved like a co-parenting thing." I stared at him. "What? We can impregnate her," he said. "You and me. Well, mostly me, but it would be our child and she would be the mother and we could all be a family." I thought I was going to be sick. "You want to have a baby with your friend while you're married to me?" "It's the only way," he said. "You can't have kids. I want a child. She wants a child. We can make this work." I asked him if he loved her. He said no, it wasn't like that. He just wanted a baby, and if I couldn't give him one, he would find someone who could. I didn't scream. I just asked him to leave. He went to stay at his brother's house for a few days. I called my sister and told her everything. She was livid. She said he was emotionally cheating, that he had already made a decision with Rachel before even talking to me. She said I deserved better. I thought about it for a week. He came back and apologized, said he was just desperate, that he loved me, that he would drop the whole thing. But I couldn't look at him the same way. The fact that he had even suggested it, that he had talked to another woman about having a baby with her, that he saw my infertility as a problem to be solved instead of a tragedy to grieve together, that broke something in me. We tried counseling. He seemed sincere. He blocked Rachel. He changed gyms. But every time I saw him holding someone else's baby, I felt that knife twist. I knew he wanted something I couldn't give him. And I knew that no matter how much he said he was okay, part of him would always resent me for it. We separated 6 months later. I still love him in a way, but love isn't always enough when the person you married decides that your body isn't good enough. I'm focusing on my career now. I'm saving lives. And I'm learning that sometimes the biggest betrayal isn't an affair, it's a partner who looks at you and says you're not enough without ever saying the words out loud. I thought I knew my husband. I thought I knew what our life was. I was wrong. I'm 27, he's 37. We've been married for 3 years, together for 6. He's bisexual, I've always known that, and I've never had a problem with it. He has an ex-wife, Allison, same age as him, 37. They divorced a year before we met. I thought that chapter was closed. I thought we were building something new. We adopted a son, Jack. He's 7 now. I've raised him as my own since we got married. I love him like he came from my own body. He calls me dad. We have a good life. We live in a nice neighborhood. We have a backyard. We go to the park on weekends. I thought we were happy. But Peter's family has always been a problem. They're homophobic. They never accepted our marriage. His mother especially, she's always made comments about how he should go back to Allison, how he's confused, how I'm just a phase. I tried to ignore it for Jack's sake. I didn't want him growing up around that tension. 2 weeks ago, it was Jack's birthday. We drove to Peter's hometown to celebrate at his mother's house. I didn't want to go, but Peter said it would mean a lot to Jack to see his grandparents, so I agreed. I thought I could handle one afternoon. I was wrong. We got there around noon. The party was set up in the backyard, balloons, a bounce house, a big cake with dinosaurs on it. Jack was so excited. He ran around with his cousins, laughing, playing. I spent the whole time with him. I wanted to make sure this day was perfect. I didn't notice that Allison wasn't there yet. I didn't think anything of it. Then around 2 o'clock, I saw her walk through the back gate. My mother-in-law must have invited her. I felt my stomach drop. I looked at Peter, but he was already talking to his brother, pretending not to see her. I didn't want to ruin Jack's party, so I stayed quiet. I just focused on my son. We played tag, we opened presents. I thought if I kept moving, I could ignore her. But then it was time to cut the cake. I looked around for Peter and Allison. They weren't there. I asked his sister where they went. She shrugged and said they went inside a few minutes ago. I should have known. I should have felt it. But I didn't. I just walked into the house, through the living room, up the stairs. And there they were, in Peter's old childhood bedroom, taking their clothes off. I stood in the doorway for a second. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there frozen, watching my husband's hands on his ex-wife's waist, and then I turned around and walked back downstairs. I went back to the party. I helped Jack cut the cake. I handed out plates. I smiled. I don't know how I did it. I think I was in shock. The whole time I was thinking, this can't be real. This is not happening. People started leaving around 4. That's when Peter and Allison came back downstairs. Peter walked over to me looking annoyed. "Why did you cut the cake without me?" he said. "That was disrespectful." I stared at him. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "I'm sorry. I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." He went pale. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't wait for an answer. I took Jack's hand and walked out. I drove us back to the hotel. I put Jack to bed. And then I sat in the bathroom and cried into a towel so he wouldn't hear me. Peter came back to the hotel an hour later. He knocked on the door. I didn't open it. He texted me, "Please let me explain." I texted back, "There's nothing to explain. I saw you." He said it was a mistake. He said he was weak. He said Allison had been texting him for weeks, saying she still loved him, saying she wanted him back. He said he didn't know why he did it. He said he was sorry. I didn't respond. I spent the night on the floor next to Jack's bed, watching him sleep. I kept thinking about how I was going to tell him that his father had betrayed us, that our family was over. The next morning, I drove us home. Peter followed in his car. When we got to the house, I told him I needed space. He went to stay with a friend. I called my sister. I told her everything. She was furious. She said I should divorce him. She said I deserved better. I didn't know what to do. I loved him. I still loved him, but I also hated him. A week later, I found out more. I checked his phone. Stupid, I know, but I had to know. And I saw text messages between him and Allison going back months. She was sending him photos. She was saying things like, "I miss the way you touch me, and I know you still love me, you just don't want to admit it." And he was responding. He was saying, "I can't do this to my husband," but he never actually told her to stop. Then I saw the worst part. There was a text from Allison to my mother-in-law sent the day before Jack's party. It said, "I'll be there and I'm going to get him back, you'll see." His mother set this up. She orchestrated the whole thing. I confronted Peter. I showed him the texts. He broke down. He said he didn't love her. He said he was just confused, that his family had been pressuring him, that he made a terrible mistake. He begged me to forgive him. He said he would cut off his whole family for me. I told him I needed to think. I started seeing a therapist. I started talking to a lawyer. I didn't file for divorce right away, but I knew it was coming. The trust was broken. Every time I looked at him, I saw them in that bedroom. Then 3 weeks later, I got a call from the police. Allison had been arrested for stalking. She had been driving past our house every night. She had been leaving notes on my car. She had even contacted Jack's school, pretending to be his aunt, asking about his schedule. I was terrified. I filed a restraining order against her. Peter did too, but that wasn't the end. In the process of the investigation, the police found out something else. Allison had been involved with a 14-year-old boy when she was in her 20s. She had never been charged. She had never been convicted, but the information was there. She had a pattern. She went after men who were vulnerable. She groomed them. She destroyed them, and Peter was just the latest. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm still in the middle of it. Jack is seeing a child therapist. He doesn't understand why we can't all live together. He asks for Peter every night. And I have to tell him that Daddy made some bad choices and needs time to be alone. Peter wants to reconcile. He's going to therapy. He's trying. But every time I think about taking him back, I remember that moment in the bedroom. And I know I can never unsee it. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust him again. And I don't know if I should, but I do know one thing: I will never let his family near my son again. They showed me who they are, and I believe them. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house much longer. Every corner reminded me of him. Every photo on the wall felt like a lie. I started sleeping in Jack's room on a little cot next to his bed just so I wouldn't have to look at the empty space next to me. But life moves on, I guess. Or it tries to. I'm 29, female, married for 3 years, together with my husband for 6. I met him when I was 11. We were kids. I moved to a new country with my family, and my sister-in-law introduced me to this girl named Sarah. She was also 11. We became best friends. For 18 years, she was my person. She was at my wedding. She held my hand when I gave birth. She was the aunt to my daughter. I never once doubted her, not until last week. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break. Sometimes I walk to my husband's office 5 minutes away or go to a cafe. I have a 2-year-old daughter. She stays with my mom during the day. My husband runs his own business. We have a routine. It's boring. It's normal. I liked it that way. Last Tuesday night, there was a red alert about the weather. My work trip to the next city on Wednesday got canceled. I stayed home with my daughter. My husband went out at 6 in the morning to flood-proof his business. He was back by 7:30 making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. At 3, Sarah texted me, "Are you home already? I heard it's flooding where you were traveling." I texted back, "Home safe." We didn't leave the house until Friday. Saturday morning, we went to our gym class together. She seemed off, distracted. After class, she pulled me aside and said we needed to talk in private. We went to my car. She looked nervous. Then she said, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out. Your kid was in the car." I froze. My brain just stopped, but then I remembered. Wednesday, I was home with my husband and my baby all day. He never left. We made pancakes. We watched cartoons. We napped together on the couch. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was Wednesday. She said yes each time. I asked about the time. She said 11 in the morning. I asked if it was during the red alert. She said yes. Then she described my husband locking lips with some blonde Barbie lookalike in a parking lot. I just stared at her. I said, "Sarah, I was with my husband all day Wednesday. We never left the house." She went pale. Then she started backtracking. "Maybe it was Tuesday or Thursday." I said, "You said 3 times it was Wednesday. You described it in detail. Why would you do that?" She started crying. She said she was trying to protect me. She said she must have gotten the day wrong. I didn't believe her. I drove home in silence. My husband saw my face and asked what was wrong. I told him. His jaw dropped. He said, "She's lying. You know she's lying." I knew, but I didn't know why. I started going through old messages. I found texts between Sarah and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law has always been jealous of me. She wanted my husband to marry her best friend's daughter. She never approved of me. And there it was, Sarah texting her saying, "I'll make him look like a cheater. She'll leave him. Then you can set him up with whoever you want." She was trying to sabotage my marriage so she could have more time with me. She said she missed how close we used to be. She said my husband took me away from her. I confronted her. She admitted it. She said she thought if I left him, we could go back to being like we were before. She said she loved me, not in a romantic way, but in a possessive way. She didn't care about my marriage. She only cared about losing me. I haven't spoken to her since. My husband wants me to press charges for false statements. I don't know if I can. She was my best friend for 18 years, but she tried to destroy my family. How do you come back from that? I know what it feels like to lose someone you trusted completely. I'm 27 now, and I spent 9 years with a man who never thought I was good enough for forever. His name was Nate. I met him in high school. I was 18, he was 17, we were kids. I thought we'd grow old together. I worked 2 jobs so he could focus on college when his parents disowned him over his major. I helped him through depression. I stayed up with him all night when he couldn't sleep. I gave him everything. When his parents came back around and started paying for his school, we moved into a nice apartment. He told me to quit my job. He said it was his turn to take care of me. I didn't quit, but I cut back. For 16 months, he spoiled me. He bought me flowers. He took me on trips. I thought we were happy. Then he started pulling away. He got new friends at work. He ignored me at parties. He'd be on his phone during dinner. In December, he did a complete 180. He love-bombed me harder than ever. He bought me a necklace I'd been eyeing for months. He made a reservation at my favorite restaurant. On January 2nd, he made me my favorite dinner, lasagna from scratch, and gave this long speech about how I was his first love, how I'd been there since the beginning. I thought he was going to propose. He dumped me instead. He said I was a good girlfriend, but that's all I'd ever be, a girlfriend, not a wife, not the mother of his children. He told me I wasn't wife material. He said he needed someone more ambitious, more put together, someone like his coworker, this woman named Cassie. I was devastated. I cried for weeks. I lost weight. I couldn't sleep. I started therapy. 4 months later, I got a text from him. It said, "I need to get something off my chest. Can we meet?" I was stupid. I said yes. We met at a coffee shop. He looked terrible. He said he'd made a huge mistake. He told me that after he broke up with me, he went to Cassie and confessed his love. He said she laughed in his face. She told him he was a piece of trash for ending a 9-year relationship for her. She said she never wanted him. She'd only been friendly because she felt sorry for him. He said he realized I was the only one who ever loved him. He said he wanted me back. I just sat there. I thought about all those years, all the jobs I worked, all the nights I held him while he cried. And he threw it away because some random woman told him I wasn't good enough. I told him no. I told him I deserved someone who saw me as a wife from day one. I walked out. He's been texting me every week since. I've blocked him 3 times. He makes new numbers. Last week, he showed up at my apartment with flowers. I called the police. I still have moments where I miss him. 9 years doesn't disappear overnight, but I'm starting to see what he really was. A man who used me until he didn't need me anymore. And when his shiny new toy rejected him, he came crawling back. I won't be his backup plan. Not everyone's ex comes back. Some of them stay gone, and that's worse. I'm 32, female, married for 4 years, together for 7. My husband is a civil engineer. I'm an emergency medicine doctor. My job is my passion, has been since I was 12. I thought he understood that. But after a stillbirth at 7 months and complications that made it nearly impossible for me to conceive again, things changed. He started talking about babies again. He said he wanted a family. I told him adoption was an option. He nodded but didn't say anything. Then one night he came home late. He sat me down on the couch. He said, "I've been talking to my friend Rachel. She's willing to be a surrogate. But she's also willing to let me be the father naturally, you know, the old-fashioned way." I thought he was joking. He said, "We can do this together. You'll still be the mom. She'll just carry the baby. And if I have sex with her, it's purely biological. It doesn't mean anything." I asked if he was in love with Rachel. He said no. I asked if he'd already slept with her. He stayed silent. I packed a bag. I left that night. I stayed with my sister for 2 weeks. He called every day, leaving voicemails, crying, saying he was an idiot. He said Rachel had convinced him it was the only way. He said he cut her off. He quit his job to avoid seeing her. But I couldn't get the image out of my head. My husband asking me to let him impregnate another woman, as if my body's failure made me less of a person. I filed for divorce last month. He begged me not to. He said he'd do anything. But I know better now. A person who loves you doesn't ask you to make that kind of sacrifice. They don't treat your pain like an inconvenience. I'm rebuilding my life. I bought a new condo. I adopted a dog. I'm focusing on my career. I don't know if I'll ever want another relationship, but at least now I know what I won't accept. Sometimes the people who say they love you are the ones who hurt you the most. I thought I'd seen it all, but then my husband cheated on me with his ex-wife at our son's birthday party. I'm 27, male. My husband Peter is 37. We've been married 3 years, together for 6. He was married to a woman before me, Allison. They divorced a year before we met. Peter is bisexual, no problem with that, but his family is homophobic. They never accepted me. They always told him he should go back to Allison, that it was a phase. We have a 7-year-old son, Jack. He's adopted. I love him like my own. For his birthday, we went to Peter's hometown to celebrate with his family. I didn't want to go. I knew his mom would pull something, but Peter insisted. He said Jack deserved to see his grandparents. The party was at his childhood home. I spent all my time with Jack, playing with him and his cousins. I was cutting the cake when I realized Peter and Allison weren't there. I went inside. I searched the house. I found them in Peter's old bedroom. They were taking each other's clothes off. I stood in the doorway for a second, then I walked back to the party. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I refused to make Jack's birthday about me. I cut the cake, I opened presents, people started leaving. Then Peter and Allison came back downstairs. Peter pulled me aside. He said, "You shouldn't have cut the cake without me. That was disrespectful." I looked at him and said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." He went quiet. I took Jack and left. We stayed at a hotel that night. The next morning, I called my mom. She drove 6 hours to pick us up. I filed for divorce 2 days later. Peter showed up at my apartment the next week. He said it was a mistake. He said Allison came on to him and he was weak. He said he still loved me. I told him to leave. His mother called me. She said I was overreacting, that it was just a slip. She said if I really loved Peter, I'd forgive him. I hung up. Then I started getting texts from unknown numbers, screenshots of me at the park with Jack, photos of my car. I called the police. They traced the number to Allison. She had been stalking me for months. She wanted me gone so she could have Peter back. The police told me something worse. When Peter and Allison were together, she was 14, he was 24. That's why they divorced, not because they fell out of love, but because her parents found out and threatened to press charges. Peter's family covered it up. They moved him out of state. I sat in the police station and felt the ground fall out from under me. The man I married, the man I trusted with my son, he groomed a child. And his ex-wife was still obsessed with him. She thought I was the side piece. She thought she was the real wife. I got a restraining order against both of them. Peter called me from a blocked number, crying, saying he was a different person now. I told him if he ever contacted me again, I'd release everything to the news. I haven't heard from him since. Jack asks about him sometimes. I don't know what to say. I tell him his father had to go away for a while. I hope one day I can tell him the truth. But for now, I just hold him and say,